So next we are looking at guided practice for chapter 4, lesson 8. We are on page 328. We're doing some more work with dividing by mixed numbers. So mixed numbers divided by mixed numbers, or dividing with mixed numbers. So we are going to divide. We're going to write our answer in simplest form. We will check by multiplying. And then I also want to remind you to cross cancel. Remember to cross cancel. And the cross canceling is really going to be helpful. You definitely want to pause and check to see if you can cross cancel, because that's going to just give you smaller numbers to work with. So we are less likely to make a mistake when we're working with smaller numbers than we are when we're working with really large numbers. So that's just going to help you to be more efficient and accurate. Number one, we have 3.5 divided by 1/2. So we cannot do multiplication or division with a fraction when we have that mixed number. So we need to change the mixed number to an improper fraction. So 2 times 3, to change that to an improper fraction, we multiply the denominator times the whole number and then add the numerator. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So this will be 7 halves. And then divide by 1/2. And then to divide by a fraction, we multiply by its reciprocal. So remember, the first number does not change. The 3.5, okay, it stays 3.5 because that's the amount that we have. So you might have $3.50 or 3.5 hours of work to be done, and you're dividing that up or portioning it up. So if you have, so this number doesn't change. That's your starting amount. We just change the format of it from a mixed number to an improper fraction. It's still the same number. And then we'll change, but what we do change is we change the divide into times, and we change the 1/2, which is 1 divided by 2, into 2 divided by 1, or 2 over 1. So instead of dividing by 1/2, we multiply by its reciprocal. Okay, so the 7 halves stays the same. We change the divide to times. If we change divide to times, we can't just go around saying, oh, I don't like to divide, so I'm going to multiply instead. No. If you change the divide to times, you have to change this 1 divided by 2 into 2 divided by 1. And then it's the same problem. Okay, so we change this to its inverse. Okay, and we change this to its reciprocal. All right, and then we'll go ahead and we'll cross cancel here. 2 and 2 are both divisible by 2, and they become 1. Okay, and then 7 times 1, numerator times numerator is 7, denominator times denominator is 1. 7 over 1 is 7. So our answer is 7. And then that should make sense, because if you think 3.5 hours divided by half hours, how many half hours are there in 3.5 hours? Okay, well, the 3 whole hours each have 2 halves, so that's 6. And there's the other half, so that's 7. Okay, check by multiplying. So to check by multiplying, so first of all, I like to write a check mark so I can tell where the problem ended and where the check step starts, because if those two get confused when the teacher is trying to look at your work to see if you understood it, it can make it a little more difficult to see what's going on, especially if there was a mistake. Okay, so let's look at the check step. Remember, in elementary school, we taught you how to do the check step with division this way. So think of this back from elementary school. We would do 10 divided by 2 equals 5. And to do the check step, we made you write it backwards, right? 5 times 2, does that equal 10? So that would have been your check step. 5 times 2, equals 10. 5 times 2 equals 10. Okay, so the same thing here, we're just working backwards. 7 times half, does that equal 3.5? Okay, so here's our check step, 7 times half, and then if we did this correctly, it would be 3.5. Okay, so 7, which we will write as 7 over 1, times 3.5, which instead of writing it as 3.5, we're going to write it as 7 halves, because we need that mixed number. I'm sorry, 7 times half, does that give us 3.5? I apologize. So 7 times half, okay, equals 7 halves, which is the same as 3.5. Okay, so we do get our check step there. That works out well. All right. Then number 2, we have 2 2/3 divided by 1 1/6. So 2 2/3, let's convert that to an improper fraction. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So we have 8/3, okay, divided by 1 1/6. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7, divided by 7/6. Remember, the first numbers, we leave it alone. That's our starting amount. So 8/3. We change the divide to times. And if we change divide to times, we have to change the 7/6 into 6/7. Now we want to check to see if we can cross cancel, because that makes our problems a little easier to work with. And we can cross cancel. 3 and 6 are both divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 7 and 8 do not have any common factors, so we cannot cross cancel there. Numerator times numerator is 16. Denominator times denominator is 7. Okay, how many times does 7 go into 16? It goes in twice, so 2 wholes. And then what's left over? How many sevenths are left over? Well, 2 times 7 is 14. To count up to 16 is 15, 16. So 2 more. So the answer is 2 2/7. Okay, and then 2 2/7. And then we want to do our check step. 2 2/7 times 1 1/6. So the 2 2/7, let's write that as an improper fraction. We only have a little bit of room here, so let's do that from here to there. Okay, so let's write the 2 1/7 times 1 1/6. So 2 2/7. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 2 is 16. So 16/7 times 1 1/6. 1 times 6 is 6, plus that 1 in the numerator is 7. So times 7/6. And then we want to check to see if we can cross cancel before we multiply, so we have slightly smaller numbers to work with. 7 and 7 are both divisible by 7, so we get 1 for both of those. Then we look at the 16 and the 6. Those are both even numbers, and even numbers are divisible by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now in our numerator, we have 8 times 1, which is 8. In our denominator, we have 1 times 3, which is 3. And then we say, how many times does 3 go into 8? So we have 8 over 3 here. Let me make that 3 a little neater. 8 over 3. So how many times does 3 go into 8? Twice. With how many thirds left over? 3 times 2 is 6. And then to get to 8, I need 2 more. So 2 2/3. Was that my starting amount? Yes. So when I see that I'm back to my initial starting amount, I know I'm done. I make my second check for my check mark. All right. Number 3, 6 2/3 divided by 2 6/7. So first we need to convert these to improper fractions. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 2 is 20. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 2 is 20. So 20/3 divided by, then we change this to an improper fraction. 2 times 7, or excuse me, 7 times 2 is 14, plus 6 is 20. So 20/7. All right, great. And then now that I've changed them both to improper fractions, I want to leave that first number alone and multiply by the reciprocal. And I will remember to cross cancel. I already see these 20s are going to be, they're going to cross cancel right out. That's going to be beautiful. So multiply by the reciprocal. Leave your first number here. And I'm going to shift over to the right a little bit because I can see already that my check step from number 2 kind of took up a little bit too much space here. I'll make that check mark underneath. Okay, so 20/3, I'm just shifting that over a little bit. We will change the divide to times. So instead of dividing by a fraction, we're going to multiply by its reciprocal. So times 7/20. So I see those 20s are going to beautifully cross cancel. That makes me so happy. So 20 and 20 are both divisible by 20. Those will cross cancel out to 1, which is nice. Numerator times numerator. 1 times 7 is 7. Denominator times denominator. 3 times 1 is 3. So we have 7/3. How many times does 3 go into 7? How many times does 3 go into 7? It goes in twice with how many thirds left over? 3 times 2 is 6. I need one more to get me back up to 7, so 1/3. So my answer is 2 and 1/3. Then I'll do my check step. 2 and 1/3 times 2 and 6/7 should give me 6 and 2/3. Okay, so let's do our check step. 2 and 1/3, and then I'll write that as an improper fraction here because I don't have a ton of room. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 7/3 times 2 times, 7 times 2 is 14 plus 6 is 20. So 27ths equals, I see my 7s are going to cross cancel. So I'll go ahead and do that. 1 and 1. 20 and 3 do not cross cancel. So then I multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator is 20. Denominator times denominator is 3. So I have 20/3, which I recognize from right here. Okay, so I know that checked out fine, but I'm just going to go ahead and show that. How does 23rd get written as a mixed number? So how many times does 3 go into 20? It goes into 6 times with how many thirds left over? 3 times 6 is 18 plus 2 more gets me up to 20. So 6 and 2/3. As soon as I see that, which was my starting number, I know I'm finished with my check step. Okay. And we'll stop with the check step for 4 and 5 because I want to concentrate on the word problem aspect of it. So just a refresher on the check step, just to remind you so you don't get confused. Just think back to elementary school when we had you do your check step in division, when we had 10 divided by 2, and you would say that's 5, and then we asked you to prove it with addition. So in other words, check it with, or prove it with multiplication. So in other words, check it with multiplication. 5 times 2 is 10. So that's how we would show our check step in elementary school. This is the exact same thing, except instead of having whole numbers like 10 and 2, okay, we have fractions like 3 and a half and half. Okay, so we're just bumping it up to the next level in 6th grade. All right, number 4, a little bit of a harder problem. So when you have a problem like this, sometimes kids get really intimidated and they don't know where to start. So if you get intimidated, I want to give you a strategy called make it simpler. So make it simpler is really helpful to kids whenever we see things that are just, they kind of automatically make our brain go into like a panic mode, a little bit of a panic mode. And we automatically start to doubt ourselves. Like, can I do this problem? It looks hard. I don't know if I can do it. You can do this problem. It's the same skill set that you just did here, but we're going to just make you think a little bit harder about that problem. So the make it simpler strategy that I just mentioned is when you see a fraction or a decimal, or when you get to 8th grade, you see variables like letters, X, Y, Z, and you don't know what to do with those. Well, temporarily just replace those with numbers that you would know what to do with, right? Kind of like we did here with our check step, 10 and 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, okay? And then you check it with 5 times 2 equals 10. So put in these, just temporarily substitute in these numbers that are easier for you to know this is what I do. I do 10 divided by 5, okay? And or 10 or 2 times 5 to check it to get 10, and then follow that same strategy for your more difficult problem. So that strategy is called make it simpler, okay? So we're going to use that strategy for number 4. So a box of snap, let me read it once, then we're going to do it with what we would do with our simple numbers, and then we'll do it with our real numbers. Okay, so we're going to really take our time on this word problem and not rush through. A box of snack size cracker packs weighs 28.5 ounces. Each snack pack weighs 4 3/4 ounces. How many snack packs are in the box? Okay, so that's a lot of fractions, and I have ounces. Okay, so what if I just use my same number as 10 and 2 again? Okay, a box of crackers weighs 10 ounces, 10 ounces. Each snack weighs 2 ounces. How many snacks are in the box? Okay, that's the strategy, make it simpler. You already know the answer, okay? So I'm just ignoring these real numbers for a moment, just for a moment, okay? And I'm saying if the whole box weighed 10 ounces, and each snack weighed 2 ounces, how many snacks are in the box? 5. Okay, how did you get that? You did 10 divided by 2. Okay, well, these are not real numbers from our problem, but we know what we did. In our make it simpler, I'm just going to put this in like a little bubble because this is just our thought process. So my thought process was 10 divided by 2 to get my answer 5. Okay, so that's my make it simpler strategy. So now I know I'm going to do that same strategy or that same algorithm in that same order, but I'm not using my fake numbers 10 and 2. I'm using my real numbers 28 and a half divided by 4 3/4. Okay, so that strategy is called make it simpler, and that lets us know what to do with the numbers that we can really work well with in our mind, like 10 and 2, as opposed to numbers that are harder to work with, like 2 and a half and 4 3/4. Okay, or if you had decimals like 28.5 and 4.75. Okay, or when you get to algebra, 3xy and 2x. Okay, so you just always can come back to this strategy and make it simpler. So let's do that now. 28 and a half divided by 4 3/4. 28 and a half divided by 4 3/4. Okay, so then I need to change these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So I'm going to do 2 times 28 plus 1. Okay, 2 times 28 is 56. Okay, I just did 25 doubled, 50, and 3 doubled, 6, 56. Okay, so 28 times 2 is 56, plus 1 is 57. So 57 halves. And then I'm going to leave this divide for now because I don't want to do too many steps at once. And then 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. So divided by 19 fourths. Then, now that I have them both as improper fractions, I have 57 halves divided by 19 fourths. I leave that first number alone. Remember, that's what I'm starting with, 57 halves. Okay, and then I change the divide to times, and I change the 19 over 4 to 4 over 19. Then I want to check to see if I can cross cancel. I know that's about 20. So here's where our estimation comes in that we did earlier in the year. I know that's about 60. So I think this is going to go in 3 times. I think that 19 times 3 is 57. I'm just going to check that over here. 19 times 3. 9 times 3 is 27. Write the 7, carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. Yes, so 19 times 3 is 57. So I can cross cancel. 19 divided by 19 is 1. 57 divided by 19 is 3. Okay, so then I look at my 2 and my 4. Can I cross cancel there? Yes. 2 and 4 are both divisible by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then I multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. So there were 6 snacks in the box. So 6 snacks in the box. Okay, and we have time for one last problem. The soccer team has 16 and a half boxes of wrapping paper left to sell. If each of the 12 players sells the same amount, how many boxes should each player sell? So 16 and a half boxes of wrapping paper. So same thing will make it easier. Like if I had 20 boxes and 5 players, I would do 20 divided by 5, and each person would need to sell 4. Okay, but it's not 20 and 5, it's 16 and a half and 12. So we do 16 and a half divided by 12. And I'll go ahead and write that 12 as 12 over 1. And then we need to change these to improper fractions. 2 times 16 is 32, plus 1 is 33. So 33 halves. I'm going to change the divide to times and change the 12 over 1 to 1 over 12. And so then we have, can we cross cancel? No, no. Okay, no cross canceling anywhere. Okay, too bad. And then numerator times numerator is 33. Denominator times denominator is 24. Okay, so then we want to ask ourselves, how many times does 24 go into 33. That goes in once. Okay. And then we have 9 24ths left over, right? That's counting up from 24 to 33. Yes, 9 left over. And then I look at 9 and 24. I know those are both divisible by 3. Oh, I could have divided. I could have cross canceled right here. That's where it was. These were both divisible by 3, but that's okay. Sometimes if you do forget to cross cancel or not realize that you can cross cancel, you can just simplify it in the end. Okay, so 9 and 24 are both divisible by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So each person should sell 1 3/8 boxes. So about 1.5 boxes. All right. And then how do you divide mixed numbers? So this is a one sentence answer. Write the mixed number as an improper fraction. Write the mixed numbers as improper fractions. And then divide using the same process for dividing fractions. So divide by, and we'll write it out, divide by multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, and so then tonight's homework. So great job with that. That is how to divide with mixed numbers.